when your mind is calm and your intellect is stabilized, what happens is you become more and more mindful, and your consciousness plane goes above and higher and higher. What we are experiencing with this consciousness, that we are not even conscious at all times. That's why we are not able to focus and unleash the power of present, because when you are conscious, you will be always in the present and you will not be worried of the past or anxious about the future. We are not even conscious at this moment of time all the times. Consciousness is a great effort that we need to put in to bring consciousness in the forefront. But a person who has stabilized, calmed his mind and stabilized his intellect for such a level, his mind will be operating in a different plane of consciousness. And with that plane of consciousness, he experiences the total bliss, or the natural nature of every human being, which is the bliss. Because of that natural experience of bliss, whenever he contacts the sense objects in the world, there is nothing that he has to gain from it or give from it or enjoy or derive the pleasure from it, because 100% spiritual is nothing but understanding that you are the true source of your happiness, and you are not expecting anything from the external world for you to derive the happiness. When such a plane of consciousness is reached, whenever you see the sense objects, what happens? There is no effect of sense objects on you. But we are in this plane of existence where we are bound in the physical layer with our body, mind, and intellect, and everything we contact, we create more and more and more vasanas. Unless we transcend the vasanas, we will not be able to go above the plane of consciousness until we are tied to BMI. But this person has transcended the vasanas. That's when he realizes a higher plane of consciousness and experiences that bliss within him, so that he is not disturbed. So day and night here reflects the brightness. When the day is bright, which means that a self-controlled person always experiences that bliss and joy. Whereas when they say that what is day for him, he is blissful all the time. But what is night for us at the same time? When we contact the world, we create more and more desires, and because of all these desires and different kind of negative emotions that crop up in our mind, we become restless. So that restlessness is a contrast to the bliss and peace the other side, the self-controlled person has. So this is the contrast that is being brought around in this verse. So when it is night for that person, it's day for the other. When it is day for the other, it's night for the other. Are you able to relate? So day and night doesn't simply mean it is actually day and night. And this picture just to put you that we have a higher levels of consciousness. And this is also like scientifically also now they are trying to accept this fact. So the experiences of ignorant men of the world and the man of an enlightenment are widely divergent as day and night. Self-realized sage, ever awakened to the supreme consciousness, lives a life of infinite knowledge and bliss. Other beings lead a life in the materialistic world, caught up in the web of body, mind, and intellect. And how do you think this kind of planes of consciousness is possible? What do you think is the reason for getting this level of consciousness or getting into a state of depression? What is the reason?
Too much of thinking.
Yeah, too much of thinking. What is the reason in the sense like what is creating it? It is our brain. So everything rests with our brain. So I just wanted to bring this scientific. You might be wondering that is such a state achievable by normal human beings? Everyone might get a doubt by seeing this contrast of experiences that Sri Krishna brought here of extreme contrasts, day and night. Such a contrast of experience for same kind of people living in the same environment. How is it possible? When you ask a question, and I also, when I was trying to understand these things and went and researched a lot of things on my own, I understood that our brain waves are very, very powerful, and such states are really possible by any person. It doesn't mean it must be a person who has so and so qualification. For every human being, we are endowed with an intellect, that too two kinds of intellect. One is the gross intellect, which uses its rational capacity, logical capacity to interact with the external world, and a subtle intellect, which is needed to connect to the inner self. So once you transcend or stabilize the gross intellect and go over it and try to operate on your subtle intellect level, that's when you will be able to experience all these things. So what is given is human brain is like a radio that opens up to different experiences at different frequencies. We know how the radio operates, right? There could be a lot of stations going on at different frequencies. But if your radio is not tuned to a particular frequency, you will not be able to listen to that particular transmitting station. All agree on that?
Yes, Abhi.
The same way, yeah. So the same way, our brain also is like a radio. And what is the frequency that it is tuned to gives us the experience of that particular radio station. So the frequency. So let's see what is the frequency that our brain normally tunes into. And what is happening with this human brain? Nowadays, if you get one disappointment, we get mood swings for days together. And if there is one threat, we end up into the trap of fear. And if there is one failure or one lost opportunity, we end up in regrets for years together. And on the contrast, we say that human brain is so powerful. And why are we operating in such a level of fragility? Everything lies within the gray matter that is present in our brain. We have the potential to make our brain to a superconscious state. At the same time, we also have potential to make it a prey to all kinds of negative emotions and end up in depression. The choice is ours, how we want to operate our brain and use this station or a radio, a powerful instrument, to receive what we want. So this is a quote where we physicists know that the brain is a milliwatt transmitter of radio. We have computers that can decipher much of this gibberish coming from our brain, and we could use that to control computers. So it means that the thing that we have developed as a computer or controlling it, this brain is more powerful than that. And if the brain is like a radio, then the frequency, we told that our brain vibrates at a certain frequency, right? So what is that frequency? Where does it comes from? And how do we know what frequency we are operating in? So the dialing, how does the dialing happen? Through the frequency of our heart, which means that heart is the dial tuning the radio frequency of your choice, meaning that the frequency is nothing but the frequency of your heart, which is nothing but frequency of the emotions you carry within you. So that is what is the frequency with which your brain operates, and that frequency attracts the same kind of station available to it. So what is emotion? This is what I liked when I was researching. It at one context was given that emotion is nothing but energy in motion. So we all know we have a pranic body where our energy flows inside our body and also outside our body as a magnetic field, inside as an electrical pulse. So emotion is nothing but how you are helping that energy to flow inside your body. And the vibration happens at a certain frequency based upon the emotions that you have chose. And the law of vibration activates the law of attraction. And through the law of deservedness, you attract what you send out by emotions and you hold in your body. In a nutshell, what is important to notice the power of emotion that you are carrying within you. That is what is giving you the experiences, and that emotion has the power to tune your frequency to a higher level of consciousness. If you see the scale that I have given here, all the negative emotions have lower levels of frequency, and all the positive and nurturing emotions have a higher range of frequency. So the more and more we are entrapped in the negative emotions, we cannot get good experiences, because the universe works on the law of attraction. Whatever emotion you have, whatever frequency you radiate, that is the same frequency you attract from the universe. So our brain has a sheer potential for it's a sheer genius. It can act as a doorway for superhuman powers. At the same time, you can also fall a prey and get into depression as well. And what the scientists have discovered is that just as we have heart rates that are beating, the brain frequency can also be measured in terms of cycles per second. And I'll go faster. So these are the 5 kinds of frequencies with which your brain operates. And how does this happen is with your thoughts. If your brain is operating at a 14 to 40 thoughts per second, that means your frequency of the brain produces beta waves. Most of the times we will be entrapped in these beta waves, and these beta waves are, what does it help us with, or what does it create? It creates a lot of restlessness. It creates a lot of confusion because of overactivity of your mind, and makes our life very chaotic and restless. And these waves are the poorest usage of our brain as an instrument. So the second kind of waves that can be produced by the mind is alpha waves. And this alpha frequency comes into picture when your brain operates at 8 to 14 cycles per second. So the thoughts become lesser in the alpha state. So when your brain is in the alpha state or producing an alpha frequency, your body will start the self-healing process. This is when your healing starts, your body relaxes, and you will be more creative in these aspects. Theta, delta, and gamma are next states. Like theta has a lesser number of cycles per second, delta has, and theta is like you will be able to get an experience of the astral world and all. And delta, they say that if you come into this, it's a complete absorptive samadhi state or a meditative state. And gamma is a new state that has been yet to be discovered. So I'm not explaining much about theta, delta, and gamma because they are beyond our current things. It's just to know. But among beta and alpha, we could always try to come to the alpha state at least, so that we don't damage our body. One thing, because alpha is the state where you can actually unleash the powers of your subconscious mind. You can also do miracles with your intuitions, with your auto suggestions, and your thought process. So if you slowly try to move from the beta frequency to alpha frequency, you will see a lot of changes happening within you and peace coming to you at a much easier rate. And this alpha state is the state when we are trying to meditate. We normally produce alpha frequency because, you know, meditation is being focused on a single thought. So when you are focused on a single thought, for most of us, it will be it won't be an absolute single thought state, because still we have not come to that level, but still it comes into this range of 18 to 14 cycles per second, and the frequencies will be relatively relaxing because you are trying to control your thoughts, or you're trying to not to attend to all the thoughts that are coming in. And this being in the beta frequency is what creates chaos in our lives. And once you enter into the alpha frequency, the doors to tune into the divine will become better and better. As long as you are in beta, you will not be able to tune into the divine. That means you will not be able to see your inner self. So you can just ask yourself where you want to begin. Where are you? Which frequency are you always radiating? Understanding the concept of this. And the simple way to bring down from beta to alpha is by doing deep breathings or simple kind of pranayamas. Any kind of breathing exercises will generally calm down your brain and bring you to a relaxed state where you will be in a position to produce alpha rays or alpha frequencies. So this is not a miracle. This is a human possible thing where we hear the contrast that Lord Krishna has given. that a person who is self-controlled is there in the world amidst of us experiencing the same sense objects, but still the experiences that he has is quite contrast from a person who is having or who is having self-control versus a person who is not having self-control. Is this clear?
Yes, Abhi.
Yes. Only I have one small doubt.
Yeah.
In the emotions, presentation, that chart which you showed, alpha was in the lowest. That is in the curve, in the cone curve, it was in the lowest part of the curve because the curve was inverted. And the lowest part was pointing towards alpha, saying that when our emotions at the lowest, we are in this level with the red color. Whereas in the next one, you were saying that alpha is a higher level, right?
No.
From beta. So
Yeah,
I'm a little confused.
alpha
with
is
that.
higher than beta. Here, actually, they did not give beta at all. Okay. So this chart is given for you to understand the numbers beside. I didn't actually look at alpha and omega also. Okay. So these numbers, if you look right, this 20, 30 are the frequencies with which you radiate. So what I meant by the lower is that this shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, right? These are all lower level emotions or emotions having a lower frequency.
Okay. But why is alpha in the lowest in the picture?
No, they did not. Here they did not give beta at all. This chart, I didn't take it for explaining you the brain waves or this kind of thing. Okay. This if you see here, you will have all these waves, right? Where beta, they say that you are externally seeing and all. So this chart, I didn't actually look into that, but this chart was not meant to explain the alpha, beta, gamma through this. The purpose I put this chart was to explain you the frequencies, frequency numbers for each emotion. So the greater the frequency number, the more good to have it within us, because that's what takes you to a better state. So this is what gives you like the electricity watts, right? If you are having a 20 frequency, you will just glow like a 20-watt bulb. Right. So these numbers and the numbers in the next slide, they are not related, right? No, that is thoughts per second. This is frequency measurements. Okay. Yeah. This CPS that we say is thoughts per second. Number of thoughts you have. They say cycles per second. That means how many times your brain is getting modified in 1 second. So when does a brain get modification? Is when a new thought comes, the brain changes its complete schema. Okay. Yeah, this is the thoughts per second, kind of. Right. Yeah. Thanks, Sabita. Yeah. So why I wanted to bring this scientific aspect into this teaching is to make you understand that this is not just a scriptural thing that we are learning, but this is the fact and scientifically proven also. But what in science we understand is that the theta, delta frequencies are produced by our bodies. Theta is produced in the dream sleep state, and delta is produced in the deep sleep states. Our body produces even now. But through the scriptures, what we learn is to be awake. If you are awake at that state, that means your consciousness is there at that point of time. That is when you will be experiencing this. So when you do yoga, all these things, the transformation is that even when you say you are in meditative state, you are in a thought-led state, but you are completely awakened. Your mind is totally alert. Your mind is not sleeping. You are alert yet not disturbed. That is the difference. So even now we have theta and delta waves producing by our brains, but we don't realize that because either it will be a dream sleep state or a deep sleep state. That means our conscious mind is not awakened at that point of time. Right. Thanks, Abhita. Yeah. Let's get back 3 more verses. So he gives that contrasting experience explanation and comes to the next verse. Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudramapah pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishyanti sarve na shantimapnoti na kamakami. Here he gives an analogy. As waters entering the ocean, which filled from all sides, remains undisturbed. Likewise, he in whom all objects of enjoyment center attains peace, not the desire of the desirer of the objects. The way to understand is this: we know river and we know ocean. What is the difference between river and ocean? The river has a name, it has a boundary, and it keeps reducing and it keeps increasing. And when it goes, it merges with the ocean. In ocean, when you see, it is the completeness. In what is the replica of ocean with regards to us is like that absolute feeling. So ocean is always complete. Just because the river is entering the ocean, the water level of ocean doesn't increase, and just because the river doesn't enter the ocean, the level of water doesn't decrease. So the ocean is ever still, irrespective of the water of rivers coming in it or not, or the waters flowing in any direction. It's always achalam. Achalam is steadfast, very peaceful in that state. And this one he is comparing with the person who is self-controlled and a person who is not self-controlled. So the person who is not self-controlled is like a river, and a person who is self-controlled is like an ocean, in the sense he doesn't produce any new desires. So when any new object comes to him, he is already exhausted all his vasanas, and that's why he is in that state of complete bliss. So when the sense objects come, he doesn't develop any kind of new desires, and he is steadfast. This is the analogy that Lord Krishna tries to give here with regards to this state verse. So it's just like the ocean and the river. The person who is self-controlled and the person who is not self-controlled, how does they produce desires? When they see the sense objects is what is given. The person who is self-controlled is undisturbed even in the middle of sense objects, but the person who is not self-controlled is always disturbed when he comes or she comes in the contact with the self objects. So these two videos I will be sharing in the group. Let's go to the next verse. Vihaya kamanyas sarvan pumams charati nisprihah nirmamo nirahankarah sashanti madhigacchati. So that man who abandons all desires and moves about without earning, without the sense of I and mine, attains peace. It's not just peace, he says sashanti, which means it is a complete peace or real peace. So he still emphasizes that this peace is the real peace. And this verse is like summing up all the verses that had been talked before, or taking from, I think I have put the slides here. Yeah. So we talked about peace in the verse 64, where he says, Raga Dvesha Viyukta, which is you don't propel your actions with likes and dislikes. If you are not propelling your actions with likes and dislikes and not getting likes and dislikes after your experience, you will attain peace. And after that, he explained what is the effect of peace. Once you get peace, your mind is calm. That's when your intellect is stabilized. And that is the effect of getting peace. And finally, he says, what is the supreme state of a person who comes is this apurya mana chala machala pratistam, which we told before, like he will be in the state of an ocean, in the sense he will be understanding the absoluteness of the creation. And we also saw what are the qualities of a perfected soul. So such a person, what is the quality of a person who can remain so steadfast? That person is not agitated by sorrow nor excited by joy. So internally and externally, he maintains the state by not getting elated or not being depressed by the events in the life. And he even contacts all the sense objects. How? Even good happens or bad happens, he neither rejoices nor hates, and that's how his wisdom is stabilized. These are all the things that have been summed up from the previous verses, from 65 to till now, whatever we have told. That's what has been summed up. And in this verse, he specifically says that in the second line, he says, Nirmamo Nirahankaraha, a person who doesn't have the notion of I and mine. That means he doesn't have, when a person doesn't have I and mine, a person is not having ego, which is the identification, false identification of the self. Only when you identify yourself with a false identification, that's when I and mine, the ahamkara and mamakara comes into picture. And because of this I and mine is why we acquire, possess, develop attachments and everything. If you don't have this ahamkara and mamakara, there is no need to acquire, possess, to again preserve things and to attach, develop attachment towards things. So you have attained peace. After attaining peace, you see what are the effects. And after finally, he says, you also need to give up the notion of I and mine. And once this notion of I and mine is given out, then you will achieve what is Sashanti. So he says the complete peace or the real peace is achieved when one person gives away the notion of I and mine. So he treats the whole world as a big stage and plays his part, neither ego nor earning for anything that world can offer. It is the analogy which Shakespeare gives. So when we take our life as a stage drama, if you are given a role of a judge or if you are given a role of a murderer, you know the connection between you and the role, because you are acting as a villain in the stage drama. After finishing your drama, you are not going to feel bad about yourself or brood over that you were a villain, because you have a right kind of attachment or a right kind of striking with that role. You know that that is not real, that is a stage, and that is only the part you are playing. In the same way, the person who is realized or a person who has got enlightenment understands this. This is relatively we are talking when we compare ourselves with stage, drama and us. For that person who is realized, this whole world is a drama and he understands the real drama and what is real. And that's why he lives with that universal oneness or unity in diversity, where he radiates with universal love and compassion and sees oneness. Even he sees a murderer or he sees any person, within each one of them, what he sees is the divinity that is propelling in each one of us. Without that consciousness, there is no living being, there is no non-living being. So such a person sees that core in each and every one of us. Even though that person is doing a bad thing, it is not the core. The core of each and every one of us is the divinity. So he observes that. For example, you see 100 stars in the sky. For a normal eye, when we look at the sky and feel, oh, there are 100 stars today. But a person who has enlightened, when he looks at the stars, what he experiences is the consciousness that is, or the light that is behind those stars. That is the difference in the way we see. And that gives your mental peace. That differs the state of mental peace that the two persons have. Is it clear till here?
Yes, Abhita.
So we are going to the final verse of chapter 2. Esha Brahmi Stitif Partha Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati Stitva Syamanta Kalepi Brahma Nirvana Mrichati. Here he is stating the state of Brahman. State of Brahman is nothing but the state of the supreme consciousness, or trying to connect with your divine nature. So he refers that this, how to achieve this stage is said in the previous 17 verses. So this state is not the three states. When we understood about the Atman in the earlier verses, we understood that this state is the fourth state. It's not a waker state. It is not, it doesn't come in the sleeping state, or it is not the deep sleep state. But this is the fourth state where consciousness is separate from the dreamer, from the waker, and from the deep sleeper. So a person will achieve the Turiya state, or the state of that supreme consciousness, when you are in this stage of the stabilized intellect, following all the things that has been said, mainly the self-control and all these things. So you will raise above all your conditions. That means you will raise above all your 3 gunas. There will be no, until the time the gunas are there, you will have that mental restlessness, because the mental temperaments are the reason for you to act in such a way. So until the time you have your rajas, tamas or sattva, we will still be in the crux of this mental fluctuations. Once you have transcended the conditioning of the 3 gunas and the conditioning of your body, mind and intellect, that is when, Arjuna, you will be steadfast in the state or established in the state of Brahman. That is what he is here concluding. So you attain that oneness, what we call moksha or liberation or anything. This is what is the state, is what is being told here. So Om Chetsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Sankhya Yogo Nama Dvitiyodhyayah. So we successfully concluded the second chapter. So anyone want